Hi, and welcome to Conversations with Confidence. I'm Charlotte Cagny, supporting women to feel confident as they prepare to give birth. And today we welcome Clare Ford. Clare Ford works at business Beautiful Soul. She is a master Reiki, a Mastery Siri Reiki master, a life coach. She works with mastering your mindset and connecting with your baby in her business, and I'm very happy to welcome her today.
Hello, it's lovely to be here, thank you.
Very excited to hear some things that you can share with helping women, as you also help women to feel confident giving birth. And you are a mother of 2 children yourself, and so you've had a journey to becoming a mother yourself where you've gone from scared to confident. And would you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, of course. So I'm a mother now of 2 much older children, and like many of us in this field, it's our journeys which have led us to do the work that we do. And my pregnancies, to be honest with you, were pretty good, pretty trouble-free, but I really, although I felt prepared for the birth, I really wasn't prepared at all for the journey, for how long it was going to take, and also I had no idea of the options that were available to me at the time. So I felt quite disempowered. I ended up, in the hospital because I didn't know that there was an option to have a home birth or a water birth in the hospital, or to go to a birthing centre, or any of these things. And actually, the first birth I had was very long drawn out and a little bit traumatic. Now, with my second son, of course, I was then dreading it because I knew potentially what was in store, but it was a completely different experience, completely different. And so what I would say to anybody who is thinking how they're going to do it, that they're worried, that they're scared, they're worried about the pain, they're worried about whether the baby's going to be okay, what the outcome's going to be, is that it doesn't matter whether it's your first baby or your 5th or 6th baby. Every pregnancy is different, every birth is different, and what you're bringing to the table as a mother-to-be is different. The dynamics in the house are different, your partner is different. So I think it's important to treat it with curiosity and with surrender and with trust and acceptance, as though it's the first time round every time.
Yeah, lovely. And what did you wish you'd done in the first birth to prepare that would help you feel confident? I know we don't know what we don't know, so when you're going the first time, it's really difficult to know how to prepare with something you've never done. And what do you wish you'd done to prepare more?
Yeah, well, certainly what I did with my first birth was, I got informed, and I would still recommend that to this day. Of course, there's information comes in different ways. I didn't have Google at the time because I'm that old. But, there's getting informed, and then there's getting overwhelmed with information. So there are 2 things there. I think it's getting informed and then making a decision and staying in your lane, and then be like, right, shutting off the computer, shutting off from the birthing stories and from all the advice that's out there. Like, find out what you need to know, make a plan, and then be like, okay, obviously you might have to deviate from the plan, but ideally this is what we would like to happen. This is what fits with our values. This is what fits with what feels good for us. This is ideally what we would like to do. Then, of course, you can think, okay, it might be this, it might be this, it might be this, but try not to get so overwhelmed with information that you just get completely stuck and think, oh, well, what will be, and because then you're giving your power away. Yes, what will be, but you can still feel empowered in the journey. And that's where I was well informed, but I wasn't empowered.
Yeah. How did you change that to feel more empowered with the second? What did you do?
So I basically decided to trust my intuition, which I'd completely ignored in the first pregnancy. I'm a very intuitive person, as you mentioned. I'm now an Usui Reiki master, so that doesn't come without a bit of intuition, right? And I was completely in my head and body with my first baby, like trying to work through it mentally, logically, step by step. So if you do this, this happens, and making my lists, to-do lists, to-buy lists, and all of that. But I wasn't in my heart. I wasn't in my soul. I wasn't with my intuition. I wasn't connected with my whole self. That was the difference with the second baby. It was almost like I didn't have time with Oscar to really prepare, because I was running around after the toddler, working part-time, managing the house and everything anyway. And so I actually had to tap in to my inner knowing. And that was so much better, because then I was working with the baby. I was working with my body. I was working with divine source and inspiration and inner wisdom and knowing. And that is the key to unlocking an empowered birth, however it comes out. Whether it's a blue lighted emergency cesarean, it can still be an empowered birth, and you can still be tapped into source. You can still be following your intuition. You can still be connecting with your baby. So it's not like it has to be some natural water birth, beautiful experience with candlelight. Yes, if that's what you want and that can happen, amazing, fantastic for you. Might not be the reality, but you can still have an intuitive, empowered birth.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think it's such an important point that can get missed, because we do go into our head. Our society is biased towards the rational head, thinking that way. And then when we bring in this more traditionally seen as feminine energy of intuition, and see that as science for science of intuition, what would you recommend to someone for whom it's a bit new or a bit unsure to really trust their intuition when they're working with a medical staff who might be pointing rational, and you're looking at evidence, but you've still got to work with that intuition inside? What would you tell to people to build that muscle?
Well, I think it's important exactly that, to build the muscle ahead of time before you really need to tap into it, right? It's always there. But if you don't know what your intuitive voice sounds like, if you've never heard that small voice within, if you've never connected with that before, that voice is still going to be talking to you and calling to you and shouting to you. But if you don't know what that sounds like, or where it comes from, or how that feels for you, or if that lands in your heart space, or if you're hearing it in your mind's eye, or whatever, if you haven't connected with that ever before, you're not going to be able to pull that out of the bag when you're in the middle of giving birth. You're not. Because it has to be a muscle that you build. It has to be something that you can draw on quite instinctively. And although it's there, if you don't know it's there, you're not going to hear it, feel it, see it.
Mm.
So it's about practicing ahead of time. It's about getting all your skills and your strategies and your tools in a row ahead of time. It's put the work in now before you really need it. So then you can make triggers and connections. For example, you could simply do a movement with your hands, a simple mudra, which would connect you with source. You could have a room spray, so the scent connects you with source. You could have a sound or a chant that connects you. You could have an affirmation that connects you. You could have music that connects you. You could have your partner holding you or squeezing your shoulder or giving you a look in a certain way that connects you with source. You have to practice that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think there's some really great ideas there. I'll note them down. And I know sometimes what I'd like to do is just put my hand on my heart. So to have the intention to move my energy from my head to my heart, like you said, bringing your heart and soul in, and say, I want to connect to the heart, to the soul voice. And as practice on the little things, like you said beforehand, it's easier to feel that connection.
Yes, when you've got the time and the space. And having that intention is the crucial thing. You can't, we're obviously all walking around connected with source all the time, but you have to say the intention, even if it's in your head, that that's what you're intending to do right now in order, as you say, to shift that energy, to move that vibration, to shift you out of the energy of the mind, to shift you out of the energy of the fear, to shift your vibration up higher so that you can then ride those waves of pain, ride those waves of overwhelm, ride those waves of not knowing what to do, ride those waves of feeling that there's something so much bigger than yourself that you feel small, right? And it's true that all those things are going on, but you can ride those waves. The intuition is your surfboard. That connection to source is the sea. But you have to have the intention to get on the surf, in the sea.
That's a really great picture. I've got that picture of the surf, and I think imagery like that can be really helpful if you find your own personal image and practice with it. I have a friend and client who did that with, she found her image, we found her image together that worked for her. And then she just imagined herself there, and that, like you said, was a positive trigger, a positive anchor, you could say.
That's it.
An anchor is a better word. A positive anchor. Whenever she thought of that, the chain of events came, and that helped her to relax.
Yes.
Really wonderful. And what else do you do when you work with people and you help them develop a really positive mindset or change their mindset? And for people that are listening, think, oh, I'm not confident, I can never be confident. What would you suggest?
Yes, well, there are some strategies and some tips and some tools, obviously, that I use in my coaching program, which is all about mastering your mindset in pregnancy, you know, to have a confident and empowered birth and to parent intuitively afterwards. And, you know, there are, you know, 3 small steps that you can take every day to make that your new reality. You know, so it's not really about, the confidence grows, but it's about managing the fear and the overwhelm. And so, for example, something as simple as being aware of your breath. Right now, people might think, well, confidence is nothing to do with breathing. Well, actually, it is, because by becoming aware of your breath, you're then managing things like panic and anxiety. And I used to suffer from panic attacks, you know, when I was having a very deep depression in my life. And one of the things that I learned to do when I returned to the breath was to ask this really powerful question, which I would recommend anyone listening to the interview write down now. You know, I'm happy to put it in the Facebook group afterwards or whatever. But this is a really powerful question, which isn't just for pregnancy and parenting, but generally, right? And that is, what is wrong with now? Because so often what happens is our thoughts unravel into the future, and we start thinking, but what if this and what if that, and then that happens and this happens, and we create this whole story of something that hasn't even happened yet. And so actually, by returning to our breath, by just sitting and breathing quietly, just 3 times in and out slowly, and asking ourselves, actually, what is wrong with now? Normally, for most of us, the answer is nothing, right? Even if you're having Braxton Hicks pains, even if you're feeling nauseous, you know, even if your toddler's screaming in the other room, well, what is actually wrong with now? Because all those things are perfectly right. Your body's doing what it needs to do. Your toddler's doing what he or she needs to do. There's nothing wrong with those things. And so suddenly it switches off our amygdala, our fight, flight, freeze. It reduces all that cortisol and all that adrenaline that's going into your placenta and your baby if you're pregnant. And it makes us just calm down and think, do you know what? Actually, I've got this. There's nothing wrong. And by coming back to that, by reducing all those hormones of fear, you can then have the space to change those thoughts in your mind, to notice them, to change them. And that's when the confidence grows, because it's like, well, I'm dealing with the situation right now. I've got whatever I need inside me to cope with this. My baby is doing exactly what it needs to do. My body is doing exactly what it needs to do. My toddler is doing exactly what it needs to do. He needs to do. Even if he's having a tantrum, that's what toddlers do, right? There's nothing wrong with now.
Yeah, I like that. I did it for myself and I look at when I feel overwhelmed, it's usually because my brain can't differentiate between time in that way. So when I've got 100 thoughts, it thinks I've got to do those 100 things now. So when I go, actually, what about now? Like you said, like, oh yeah, it spreads it out, slows it down. It's really great. Was that step
Yes.
one? You mentioned 3 steps. Was that step one of coming to the breath and slowing down?
No, so it's kind of linked really. So so the breathing is the one thing. Noticing your thoughts is the other one. Once you've actually kind of calmed yourself down, it's like, well, actually, what am I saying to myself that's making me worried or making me panic? And once you notice those thoughts and you accept them for being just thoughts that are actually trying to keep you safe and keep you alive, then you can choose to change your thoughts. So that's the third step, is you choose to change those thoughts. Yeah.
You can have different thoughts to keep you safe that aren't stressing you out at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's really great. That's wonderful. Thank you. And you mentioned the deep depression. I know you also suffered from postnatal depression. What would you, having gone through that now, you know, that was in the past now, and you found strategies to support you, what would you recommend to mothers who may be worried about that happening to them, that they can help look after themselves?
Yeah, so basically there were really, there were really two keywords. And the first word is perfectionism, right? Just let go of that, right? You don't have to give birth perfectly. You don't have to look perfect when you walked out of the hospital or the birthing center or downstairs to your lounge, right? You don't have to be perfect. Imperfection is the new perfect. Your house will never necessarily be perfect again, ever, for about 20 years. Just let it go, right? I remember one day, literally, about 2 months ago, there was one day, a period of about 2 hours in my day, where I'd got the washing done, the shopping done, the gardening done, the house was clean, everything was put away. My son is 18. I've had 2 hours in 18 years where that's happened. Okay, so forget perfectionism. You don't try and, when people come around to visit you, don't be on show, for the Joneses with your, home that's in Hello magazine. Forget it. If they're tripping over toys, ask them to pick them up. If there's washing up in the sink, in the sink, ask them to do it. If there's laundry on the stairs that's unfolded, ask them to fold it up and take it upstairs. Can't do everything.
Good. That's what was happening for a long time.
Me too. That's why I got depression.
Feeling the pressure of thinking there's more to do. There's all those jobs undone that I could see, and I'd want to be doing them. My husband would be like, "Doesn't matter. You can do it tomorrow. It's not,
But why didn't he do some of them for you?
No,
with you?
It'd be like we were both tired at the end of the day, and I'd want to keep going. He's going, "No, we'll do that tomorrow. We might have done some of them." So he'd be like, "No, we'll do that tomorrow.
Okay.
All done today.
Yes.
We'll do what we've done. That's fine.
Yes.
It's not gonna, the house isn't gonna fall down because we haven't done absolutely
No.
day.
Yes.
And, just do a bit each day. Do a bit.
Oh, that's nice. Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I had a husband who came home and sort of said, "Well, why isn't that done?" It's a very different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Very different. Yeah. So
again, like connecting with the heart, with where you're at each day when someone comes in.
Yeah, and managing those expectations as well of your partner and of yourself, and actually, if a perfect, lovely, tidy house is really important to you on your list of values, then get a cleaner, get a housekeeper, delegate it. Don't worry about it. Sit down, have your cup of tea, and feel wonderful in your beautifully clean, serene, tidy home while you breastfeed your baby, because if that is going to actually stress you out, then you need to take steps to know that is perhaps something that needs to be delegated or paid for.
Yeah. One moment, my computer seems to be unplugged. One second. Must have come loose. these are the things where it's, when we're talking about dropping perfectionism, right?
That's it.
So here's a good demonstration of the videos are plugged in.
That's it. Working mums right here.
Yeah, we need to recharge. Now my computer needs to recharge too.
That's right. That's right. And the second point I was going to make about, managing or preventing postnatal depression is actually a really key word for me, which is connection. And it is about having this maternal bond with your baby. And actually 30% of new mums in an NCT survey have admitted that they don't feel that they have a maternal bond with their baby. So that's 1 in 3 new mums. So it's actually more common than you realize. It's not everybody that gets this rush of love as soon as they hold their baby in their arms. So by connecting with your baby in the womb is already a way to start doing that. And that I feel is absolutely crucial. There are new studies in the field of epigenetics over the last decade that have proven the benefits, the long-term benefits, and that you can change the trajectory of your child's life, of your adult's life, already starting in the womb. So connecting with your baby in the womb, consciously connecting, making time to do that every day, even for just a few minutes, will massively boost your confidence afterwards to intuitively parent, to instinctively parent, because you've got that connection. And that will also help you to reduce the possibility of getting postnatal depression.
Yeah, that's really great. I love the studies of the epigenetics, because it's really, instead of it being a kind of like, well, that's my DNA, there's nothing I can do, this is, you've got like, there's things you can change, there's things you can do, and a simple step of connecting with your baby. But even if, for example, someone's listening and this is new and they've already had a discomfort, or it's like, you can still change that, you can still switch on and off these genes. And that's some of the work I do, looking at imprinting, looking at how things on and off and changed backwards. Did the NCT survey look at any reasons why there was such a high percentage of people not feeling a bond? Was it connected?
I can't remember. I haven't got it in front of me, to be honest. I'll try and find it and send you a link to the whole survey. I mean, the thing is, I would just like to say on that, though, that with postnatal depression, I actually felt very guilty for having it. And I remember my health visitor saying to me, you know what, postnatal depression, it's not classist. It's not sexist. It doesn't differentiate on how much you earn, because I felt guilty because I'm, white, middle class, educated, husband was working in the city, reasonably financially well off. And I thought I didn't kind of have the right to be depressed, and that made me even more stressed. I'm thinking, I should be nailing this. Like, what have I got to worry about? There are people in much harder circumstances, difficult situations, abusive relationships, drug and alcohol issues and all of that. And, they may well get postnatal depression, and you can kind of see why that might be the case. And so I felt really guilty about that. So I just want to say to everyone, regardless, even if you're, a princess who's had a baby, you might get postnatal depression, right? And it's because of this lack of connection, this lack of support, this feeling of perfectionism, this having to get everything right all the time and feel like you're doing it all on your own. They are the overwhelming reasons and feelings you get, regardless of your income, regardless of your education, your background, your social standing, your religious beliefs. It doesn't matter. Everybody's in a similar position. You are only as old as your baby. If your baby is 3 days old, you've only been a parent for 3 days. You're not going to know what to do.
I think that it really points to something that I see a lot with mothers, that's reflected in society, where the mothers aren't valued and become hidden. So there's that lack of connection, separation, and then ultimately it's like giving yourself permission to matter, to be able to take up space, because the attention can be on the baby, and like you said, you don't feel you have the right to feel depressed or things aren't going perfectly, like you said, and you drop all that, honest, and they can move through then. And it can happen anyway, even when you can do all that. I think there may be that physical aspect that, you know, an interwoven different reasons, like different hormones you may just a period to go through, and we're so averse in our society to feeling down. We want to be up all, but actually when we go down with support, with connection, let it move through and come back up, it again, like coming back to the now, you're okay, like it's terrible, and getting that support and the connection. But so I hope that's offering some really good support to women listening. I think it's really great for it. And what would be your vision for the future of birth and motherhood? That's a big question.
It is a big question, and actually at Beautiful Souls, you know, I've got my vision statement up here, and so for me it's about my mission really is to raise the vibration of our next generation, right? Is to allow our next generation babies and children who will then become future adults to be born with a higher frequency. And in order to do that, it means that they have to be, you know, grown in the womb and birthed with a higher frequency, which means that conscious connection in utero, that maternal bond, is absolutely crucial. So my vision for birth and motherhood is to support mothers to actually have a more spiritual, empowered, conscious pregnancy and birth, so that then these babies that they give birth to, who have chosen them to be vessels, right? These light beings, these light workers, these warriors, these new thinkers, these outside the box thinkers, these creative people and visionaries who are going to move humanity forwards, have to have a slightly different start, right? In order to fulfill their potential as human beings, in order to you know, communicate perhaps differently from a sense of compassion, from a heart-centered space. And so they need to be nurtured in that way, in the womb, before they're born. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about the Reiki that you use. Does that support you to do that for yourself, like the energy healing?
Yes, yes, I do that with you know, with pregnant women, also with women if they're breastfeeding their babies. You know, I've gone to yoga groups and done, you know, healing circles, and I've also done healing with young children as well, who are coming to me with anxiety and, you know, on the spectrum, and anger management and all of that, and then it goes all the way through, you know, teenagers with anxiety, suicidal thoughts, all this kind of stuff. And what I've discovered is that actually by working backwards in the sense of time to the womb, I fully believe, and this is supported again in epigenetics, that a lot of those emotional traumas that are presented, because I've been teaching for 20 years as well, so I've seen this in the classroom a lot and in my workshops and things, but a lot of those traumas that the children present later on in life can actually be prevented by taking action now in pregnancy, by connecting with your baby, by being consciously aware of the energy, by being consciously aware of your thoughts, which are, you know, if they're toxic, that's going into the baby's neurological development, making the baby's brain develop in different ways. So it is all about prevention being better than cure later on.
Yeah. I think that when I work with people, what I always say is, we look at things that have happened and how that energy consciousness that is present in the mother gets passed down, and they interpret whatever's happening because they're so connected to you. Even so, the conscious connection, because they're already connected, and if it's unconscious, they might be getting the back end. But the conscious connection means you can have a dialogue with your baby and say, look, I know I have crazy thoughts sometimes, and I'm working on this with you.
That's it.
My actual thing. So then they will get the difference they will, because they're kind of like these big beings and these little ones at the same time. They're
That's
learning
right.
the body and the going forwards, and then they're bringing in this wisdom at the same time, and it's like halfway, like a team together.
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree that at any point in time you can change, starting earlier if you can. If now you've heard it, don't be feeling guilty if you're late on and you've just heard it, because it's never too late. And as it's never too late, starting early is really good.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's never too late. I mean, you know, I'm still learning all this stuff now. You know, I'm still learning to consciously connect with my children now. They're 18 and 16.
Yeah, it's not an end point, is it?
No, it's not an end point.
Good job,
But
really.
yeah, but the thing is, this knowledge, this science and this information is all relatively new. This is cutting edge stuff. So don't feel guilty if you've not come across it before. Most of us haven't. But now that you have come across it, I would say it is absolutely your responsibility to do something about it. You know, you can choose to ignore it if you want, but now you know that actually by consciously connecting with your baby in utero can have huge positive impacts on the future well-being and development of that child. Now you know that. There are simple steps you can take if you choose to.
Wonderful. So I'm just checking. I think we've covered many of the questions. I'm just checking. If a woman is feeling confident in herself and then she finds that getting undermined, maybe by, you know, friends or people who have a different mindset that she's been working on the positive one, or sort of in the hospital, maybe meeting with people that aren't on the same wavelength as she is, what would you recommend that she do?
Well, this is a big one, isn't it? You know, we can all work on ourselves, but we can't control what other people are bringing to the table. But actually, I would suggest that in a way we can. And this is a really crucial thing to start becoming aware of. As we become aware of our own thoughts, you can also become aware of the energy that other people are bringing to the table, right? Now, of course, there are certain close, what I call your inner circle of people, which you can't necessarily get rid of, right? But it's important to know, you know, what they're bringing to the party. And actually, if they drain you, if after a conversation with them you feel completely exhausted because they're not on your same wavelength, they're not on your page, they don't have those same values, they don't understand what you're talking about, then maybe start to limit the time, if it's possible, that you spend with those people, and choose not to have them there birthing with you if they're not on the same page. What you don't want is to be in the middle of a huge contraction where you're managing the pain, and then you've got to explain to somebody why you want some lavender spray, right? You won't be able to do that. They've got to understand, right, why you might want to have a crystal there, or why you might want to have some music playing, or whatever it is you've chosen that you want. You don't have to justify yourself to anyone. You are in control of your birthing experience. What you can do, though, is you can actually choose to have a different midwife. You can choose to have people around you who support your birthing choices. You can shop around for a doula. You can choose. You can write things down. You can allocate your partner to act on your behalf with your voice and say, no, my wife or my girlfriend or my partner, she definitely doesn't want that. Explain why that is absolutely necessary, right? And so you stand in your power, right? You can choose to have a VBAC if you want to. If it's, you know, obviously do your research running up to it. Make sure that all the research is done, that you've spoken to the medical team, that you understand the center that you're going to or the hospital that you're going to, you know. What are their procedures? How invasive are they? Like, what is the time scale? You know, are you literally being shunted through because there's no beds available, because there's no staff available? Like, what is their situation? And then you choose and say, this isn't going to happen to me. This can happen to other people, but I'm standing in my power. I'm using my voice. I'm respecting my body. I'm respecting my baby, and I'm respecting my choices. right? And then if you're in a situation where perhaps you've had to have a lot of pain relief, or you're very tired, or you can't make great decisions, you need to make sure you've had a conversation with your birthing partner ahead of schedule. And you say, if this happens, please ask about this. Please insist on this, right? That's it. Have your birthing team on your side. If they're not on your side, you're giving your power away. You're doing what they say they're telling you to do. If you tap into your intuition, you know when to get into the birthing pool. You know when to get out of the birthing pool. You know when to walk around. You know when to stand up. You know when to lie down. You know that giving birth on your back is not helping gravity and it doesn't feel natural. So unless there are medical reasons, and of course there may be medical reasons, and I'm not undermining medical reasons, but I'm just saying ask. If there's a medical reason, fine. If it's just because it's an organizational reason, a time reason, no. The baby didn't get the memo in the womb about having to be out by 5 minutes past 9. No. Do your research. Get
informed. I think your intuition would tell you when it's a medical reason, and it's very different when there's a big medical emergency and you know that's happening.
Yeah, you know. And you're not going to say no to the doctors and all of that. Of course you're not. But there are times, I know, when women have felt disempowered because they wanted to do something their way. They needed a bit more time to do it, to go with it, to flow into it, to get into the rhythm of it. And then for some reason or other, you know, it's interrupted, or somebody comes into the room with an energy that they don't like, somebody who's maybe critical in the past. It may even be your mother, right, or your mother-in-law. You're like, ooh. And of course, as soon as you feel like that, you can't carry on with your contractions and birthing your baby. You stop. So make sure that there are people there that you want to be there. No one else needs to be there because they're saying they should or they must, or because it's always been that way. No. Stand in your no.
I like that. Stand in your no. I've not heard that phrase before. It's a good phrase. And I know that can feel scary in the beginning. You can practice that, like you said, with practicing your intuition muscle. Practice it in labour and have like you said, delegates that can stand in your no with your voice, so you don't have to when you're actually giving birth, because when you're giving birth you don't want to be thinking these things.
That's it.
Focusing on your body, giving birth, knowing you've got your safe container.
Yes, that's it. You have to feel safe. You have to feel heard. And like you say, you have to know that you have got that space. You are the goddess in that space. You're not just an invisible person. You're the key person. You're bringing new life into this world. What greater gift can you give humanity? So step up into that. Be that.
Yeah. I hope everyone can really hear that, because it's such it's a very small shift and an enormously big shift to step into that matter. You matter, and it changes everything. No matter what happens, all the external stuff, but it changes everything. When you start from the point of view that you matter, you have a right to ask for what you need. Change.
Exactly.
Wonderful. And so, I mean, that's a really powerful point. Is there anything at all you'd like to end with? Because that might be it, but is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything that you feel women really need to hear?
I think that's it, really. It's about being planned. It's about being prepared. It's about, you know, connecting with your baby, connecting with your intuitive voice, and also having that birthing team around you, you know, your birthing tribe, your inner circle, your outer circle, and your birthing team, making sure that they're all on the same page, that they have your vision, your values. You don't want people undermining you, the naysayers, the do-gooders, the people with the birthing stories, like whatever, that's their stuff. Let them get on with it. Lovely. Well done, you know, but this is my moment now. So make it your story, your journey of empowerment, your journey of bringing some incredible gift to humanity in the form of this little light being, this beautiful soul who's chosen you as a vessel to journey back to fulfill their potential. What you're doing is huge and humbling at the same time. And yeah, incredible and a miracle and sacred.
I love that. It makes me remember that you as the mother are also that you're bringing in, because you wouldn't be able to. It has to match energetically. So you're bringing these amazing, and everyone goes, wow, look at these babies, look how amazing. It's like, you are amazing. So I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you. I think that's a really good note to end with, that amazing energy of what we're doing and the sacredness of all this motherhood journey. So thank you so much for spending some time today chatting to us about that.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be involved.
Yeah, wonderful.